Yeah, like I think obviously when you embrace like this bragging razor, you can get better like social judgments. You get more accurate assessments of people, and you, because it sort of reduces or minimizes overestimation. Where when you hear some guy saying like someone that they do like tens of these things, and you halve it, you just think, okay, yeah. Until I see proof, I can start to really see what like there's a certain truth to what they're saying. But I'll and then if you see someone who's downplayed things, then you almost can double that as well. And I guess like it creates it reduces the overestimations, especially, and potentially underestimations of someone, and that causes. I guess that makes you more also aware of. Yeah, I guess that allows you to become more of like someone who comes closer to like truth and realism, as you see more and more like evidence of it being true or false. But yeah,
You've got a thought experiment set up. I put my laptop away.
actually, before that, I wanted to talk about like the limits, because it's the limits of like this razor, of like when it may not be applicable as well. Of situations where
Mate, it's always applicable. No,
it's good to just consider the context, and I think because like a lot of the time, right, we can overgeneralize things, right? Because at the end of the day, this is just simply just a heuristic. It's just a way of model. It's like a thinking. It's not foolproof. Nothing's guaranteed. So
disclaimer.
Yeah, disclaimer. But yeah, you don't want to obviously cause misjudgments, like, right? So that's why I said like you see actions which are proof of what they are. Say what they say what they are.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think like that's basically the main thing. I would say.
It's important to look at the proof because I think if we look at like some example, like David Goggins, for example, people would say that he talks a lot about what he's been able to do, right? So this razor won't apply to him because his actions self-speaks. Monuments compare like that. His actions speak 1,000 times more than what his words say. His words don't mean anything. And I don't mean that in the sense that I don't value his words. His words, like the book he's written and all that stuff, is a great reflection of the person he's become, his character. But it's his actions that really put things into perspective. You know, him writing in the book, I ran 3 marathons in a thing, whatever. But when you actually see him running those 3 marathons in consecutive weekends, whatever it is, it's a different ball game. That action, like that's live. You see that in front of you. You know, or like even some big podcasters like Rogan, Williamson. Like, I don't think I've ever heard them say they're the best at it, or they're the number ones, or they're the top at it. But Rogan, like their actions speak for themselves. You know, some athletes are the same thing. Like they never say I'm the number one, but their actions on the day speak for themselves. Professors, whatever. So, yeah, I think the takeaway is like look at the actions of the people, what they've been able to sort of actually achieve rather than what they say.
Yeah, 100%. Like that's why we say like actions is like the biggest thing. And then, you know what's actually nice as well with Joe Rogan and all that stuff, where they don't admit that they're the best. If they admitted that they're the best, they're actually halving their potential. It's another way I'm looking at it. They're halving their potential because it's like if they assume they're the best, then what can they improve on? They're number one. What's the point of improving? Because they're not in that frame of thinking. They're always significantly improving and learning. It's just like with Socrates, how he said like, the wise man is the one who admits that he knows nothing. The fool is the one who admits that they know everything. I feel like that, like this razor in a way can apply to yourself, where it's like, if you keep attaching yourself to like titles and all these types of things, it's nice, great, celebrate it, of course. But if you attach yourself to it, that you're going to be number one all the time, or you are number one, then I would say like you're halving your potential. You're minimizing your potential of what you can become, because you're so stuck on the title that you think that everything's perfect.
You've just come up with a new razor there.
Potential razor.
What would you name that razor?
Actually, I wouldn't know.
Put it out there, buddy. No, well said. That's good. That's a really good perspective. Once you admit you're the best, there's no way to think of how do I become better.
Or just say like, oh, if I admit I'm if you admit you're number one, is what I'm saying. Then
Yep.
just think you're halving your potential.
Yeah, number one. Yeah, good distinction. Not better. Hit me with a
But
thought experiment. No bias here, nothing. I just want pure words. I want to hear this thought experiment and I want to give you my thoughts.
sure. So basically, imagine you're like a manager who's looking to promote 2 employees based on their performance over the past year. So you have one-on-one meetings with them to discuss about their achievements. So
Yep.
say one of them is called Sam, and this guy is well dressed, very confident, and he claims that he's led 10 major projects, highlighting his key role in each of them. Now you have James, who is modestly dressed. He's generally a little bit quiet, and he basically mentions that he's worked on 5 projects and credits the team for success and downplays his role. So who would you like hire in that circumstance?
Man, there's so many factors to that. Eh?
Yeah.
It's such a tough question. I don't. Okay, it
Or
goes
what
back
would
to
your
the
thoughts be, right? Like when you have those
my
types of
thoughts there would
situations.
be to question a bit more, question Sam a bit more as to what role did you play with your team, and with these projects, how did you navigate through problems with teams? What was your input in delivering a solution with that? Because at the end of the day, you want to see a result of what was delivered, and you want to see how did you get to that result. So I would probably pose those sort of questions to both of them. James, even though he would downplay his, so those are my questions to Sam. For James, it would be more so, you've credited your team. What did you do specifically to get to this result? So sort of flip the script. So for Sam, I would probably focus more on what did the team sort of do and how did you drive that with the team? And where does that play in getting that result? With James, it'd be the opposite. It'd be, okay, you've said team, but I want to know what you've done with your result and what you did to get that result. So I think it's an interesting one because I wouldn't, and based on those responses, that could tell you a good picture. But I think in that case, like, you'd hope that both of them have, like, that could be a good indicator of that tells you, okay, one is all about themselves, not the team. Claims to have done it all themselves, but it was actually the team that played a big part. Can't tell me specifically what he did to drive the result. Cross, unfortunately. But then James has to be able to then dictate that it wasn't the team just that brought me up with me. I had to really motivate my team, work with the team, think of different solutions that I proposed to the team and worked on these solutions together to get the result. So, there's so many factors to that because then you have to really dig into those questions. And that's why you have interview questions is, what is this actually trying to tell me? What story are they trying to pitch? And, I think if my inclination would be more with James, if he's able to present that it was a lot of the team, like he drove a lot of those efforts with the team. But that's not to say I wouldn't drive Sam out because he can't give, like if he gives me the right answers between both of them, then it's a very tough situation to be in, right? But do you get my thought process?
No, it makes complete sense. I think like in some ways you did apply it like the bragging razor, even though you didn't probably say it like
Explicitly.
because like the way you applied it was like you basically looked at Sam and you're like, look, you didn't have the halo effect because that can happen, right? He's well dressed, all this thing. I must believe everything he says. You were being a skeptic because you're thinking, okay, he talks a lot about himself, but how did the team benefit from this? See, in a way, you're almost like, I mean, you're not overestimating his achievements in that sense.
No.
Because that people can fall into that like that type of thing where it's like they see this guy well dressed, everything he says must be true, but you're being skeptic here. So it's actually good you're applying this. You're thinking about, okay, now let's just see the proof in like how the team benefited from him. Like that, he could potentially be a good leader, right? And maybe he's talking to me in this frame because he's trying to sell to me really hard. So it's like in a way I'm sort of like diminishing a bit of what he's saying until it shows me the proof through his results and how he and his action, or you wouldn't really see the actions, but through his results of like what he's achieved, based on his team has achieved, then I could be able to make a better judgment. And with also James, like he talks a lot about his team, and you're trying to look at it from the perspective of, okay, he talks a lot about his team, but he's not really talking much about himself. So he's downplaying himself. What are the potential, like what is the values and things that he provided to his team, right? Because his team benefited a lot. He definitely had to be contributing something there. And then you're assessing it that way. So I would say you technically did apply it.
So I think,
but in a very different
thank you for
approach,
saying that. I'm glad that that's the outcome we got to here. Like, I think this is why standardized interview questions does not work for every single person for one role. You need to be able to ask really good questions that tells you a story, depending on what the candidate is telling you. Do you know what I mean? Because you can tell a lot look, I've never interviewed anyone in the full sense, right? But the point is that you can't dictate, like from experience, you've got to be able to see the story they're trying to tell you and find gaps in that story. You want a complete story in that point in time. You don't want gaps. You don't want holes. You don't want plot twists. You don't want all of that. You want a coherent story that tells you exactly what this person is and what they're capable of. And so, yeah, like you have to be a bit, even without reading any of the notes or anything, that's what my natural inclination would be is one is speaking, like you summed it perfectly. One is speaking about the team, speak about yourself. One is speaking about themselves, tell me more about the team and what you did there. So you've got to put them both in a relative point of view at that point. And look, it could be that Sam could be really good and he's done well. And in that case, good job, you're in. But it also could mean that James had a lot more of an influence than he downplays it more.
He just didn't realize it.
He didn't realize it.
Didn't realize it. Yes.
I think that you're right. People don't realize that once you actually start questioning them a bit more, which is why these standardized interview questions are so trash. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't tell you a full thing.
Doesn't make you realize like what value and potential you even brought out yourself. It's like, especially with the people that downplay it.
The best interviews I've been in is where I've been questioned things outside of what I prepared for. Genuinely. Where I've been asked things where I've got to take a step back. I'm like, okay. You can do so much prep for certain things, but there are certain questions I got asked. I'm like, all right, this is interesting because it's giving me the chance to really think of it from a different perspective and apply that perspective.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, like those, I guess like it makes you critically think and creatively think as well, problem solve on the spot, especially. But yeah, I think like if I was to really take this as well, like objectively, I think it'd be very similar to you. I'm naturally a very skeptical person. Like anyone that I come across, I'm just like already, not that I'm judging, I'm just thinking like, okay, I can't really go by this person's word until I actually, like I hear so many stories of people, but who actually lives to the definition of what they say. Not many I've come across. So I make it based off like, achievements, or not really achievements, more of like the character of that person. What their actions are, and do they walk the talk? Or are they just talking their mouth off and expecting themselves to walk, expecting the talk to walk random naturally? So, yeah, I think the biggest thing that I got from this, Razor, is just being skeptic and tailoring it. Like, if someone brags a lot, I mean, you'd want to be more of a skeptic there and just assume that it's half and just be skeptical and then see proof through like actions and like character and all those things. Someone who downplays those things, there's hidden potential there they probably have not recognized. Depending on how you tailor your questions and things like that, it probably might allow you to be able to see it and themselves also be able to appreciate it, especially. And I think a lot of those people that downplay it, they have just like, they've gone through some significant struggle. I feel like they have like the most, based on like just personal experience, they are the most realist people I've met because they just prove it through action. They speak less, they just prove it through action. They actually like walk what they actually, like they walk the talk. They just don't emphasize too much on their achievements because it's just a byproduct of the character which they learnt. Like what we said.
Well said. That was a really good thought-provoking experiment as well, though. Glad there was no right or wrong answers to that.
No, there is never right or wrong answers.
Yeah,
It's just like a
different
way of
perspectives.
different perspectives and way of thinking. But it shows you how like this razor is somewhat like practical to make you skeptic.